The moment a baby enters the world, their first instinct is to cry. A baby's cries signal their needs, whether they're hungry, uncomfortable, or simply in need of a comforting embrace. The most heartwarming part is that when a mother holds or feeds her baby, the crying stops, and the baby feels safe, loved, and protected. But what happens when a newborn is abandoned right after birth? Tragically, this was the grim reality for little Felix in this story. His mother, Amelia, left him behind, and to make matters worse, his nurse forgot to feed him. Felix spent the first few hours of his life alone, yearning for the warmth of his mother's touch and desperately hungry. It was a heartbreaking start for the little boy, but what unfolded in the weeks that followed will bring tears to your eyes. This story begins with Amelia slipping out of her hospital room just after giving birth. She had planned her escape meticulously for months, and everything went exactly as she expected. The nurses left her alone with the baby, giving her the perfect moment to flee. The little boy also started crying so hard, as if he could tell that the one person he could trust was about to betray him. Carefully, Amelia got down from the bed, only looking back once at the child she carried in her womb for 9 months. "You can do this. You need to do this," she said repeatedly as she tipped out of the room. But when she got to the door, her mind failed her for a moment, so she ran back to the little boy. Bending over him, she kissed his forehead, and a tear rolled out of her eyes and fell on his cheek. "I'm sorry I failed you. I'm sorry," she said, and fled the hospital. She knew she would never forgive herself, and she wouldn't even dare to try. Being 17, that was the only way she knew she could avoid public shame and her father's wrath. You see, Amelia was only 4 years old when her mother passed away, leaving her in the care of her father, who sank into a depression. He took to drinking and using hard drugs to drown his pain. He became careless, leaving Amelia all alone to care for herself. Amelia received help and support from her aunts and uncles, but there was only so much they could do as they had their own problems to deal with. So Amelia was a pretty sad and lonely girl who found it hard to fit in. To make matters worse, she had to wear glasses and braces, and her classmates at school weren't so kind. They would often call her a nerd. No one wanted to sit with her during lunch, and neither would they study with her. As a result, she developed a social disorder out of the fear of being judged or laughed at, but deep down she was craving to be loved and understood. There were a few times, though, when she felt loved by her dad, but that was only when he wasn't drunk. He would have her sit on his lap, caress her hair, and tell her he loved her, believed in her, and that she should never disappoint him. Amelia really did enjoy these moments, or maybe pretended to. But one day, she snapped. "If you're going to love me, I want you to love me every day. Today you act like a caring father, and tomorrow you become a stranger. It's messing me up," Amelia, who was only 15 then, screamed, fighting back her tears. But whatever she did or said never really changed anything. Her dad, who couldn't help himself, continued drinking. However, he still tried to be there for her, but not enough to stop her from feeling rejected and miserable. So when Amelia met Sam in her senior year, he was like an answer to her prayers. He was compassionate, unlike her classmates. He showed his feelings and made her feel loved and wanted, unlike her father. So Amelia found herself doing everything he asked for just to please him, even when her gut feeling told her it wasn't right. She was scared of losing the one person who seemed to truly care about her. One day, she summoned the courage and asked if they weren't moving too fast, but he cupped her sad face and whispered, "But you said you love me. So keep doing what I ask, or don't you love the way I show you how much I care?" And she naively replied, "I do." It was a week after they had this conversation that Amelia found out she was pregnant. When she told Sam about it, she saw a part of him that she had never seen before. He told her how careless she had been. Then he threw some money in her face and asked her to get an abortion. She almost did, but just outside the abortion center, she saw a family crying after losing their teenage daughter. So she left the scene, fearing that she could suffer the same fate. When Amelia told Sam she had changed her mind, he called her all sorts of names and broke up with her. Soon enough, the pregnancy began to show, and Amelia knew her father would soon notice. So one morning, she left him a note that said, I'm doing this so you won't be disappointed. I will be back. Please wait for me." Her father tried his best to look for her, but all his efforts proved futile. Meanwhile, Amelia was living on the streets and working multiple jobs. It was during this time that she knew she couldn't take care of the baby. She hated the circumstances surrounding his birth, and she felt like a terrible mother. So that evening, shortly after giving birth to him, she abandoned him after turning back to give him a goodbye kiss. The hospital was thrown into an uproar. The nurse attending to him was caught up in the situation and forgot to feed the boy. So little Felix was left alone, crying in his bed and desperate for some love and attention. A volunteer at the hospital, Grace, 21, heard the nurses discussing a boy who had been abandoned by his teenage mother, so she rushed into his room and found the little boy all alone. Since she already knew where the hospital kept the emergency baby food, she quickly gave him the formula. That night, Grace didn't return home. She spent the night at the hospital and slept next to the boy, who surprisingly stopped crying. Every day, Grace would go to the hospital and take care of the boy. It was on one of these days that she noticed the little boy had difficulty breathing, and she quickly called the nurse's attention to it. Several tests were carried out, and it was found that the boy had fluid in his pulmonary vessels. The doctors began to treat him, but it slowed down his chances of getting into a foster home or getting adopted because he had to remain in the hospital until he got better. Grace had already developed a strong connection to Felix, so she couldn't just let anyone adopt him. She wanted him to end up in a family that would cherish and love him. You see, Grace had once worked as a house sitter for a wealthy couple who were having issues conceiving despite trying different medical options. Although it had been 2 years since she had worked with them, Grace knew they were good people, and she knew Felix would be safe with them. However, there was one big question: were they still in need of a child, or had they already gotten one? Regardless of this, Grace still decided to try, so she called the couple, Veronica and Paul, and explained the situation. Luckily for Grace and the couple, it was just the perfect timing. The couple had already given up on having biological children and were now considering adoption. So Veronica and Paul contacted the hospital, and they were asked to come over to see Felix and decide if they wanted him or not. Grace also took her role seriously. She dressed Felix in adorable outfits and carefully combed his hair, making him irresistibly cute. As destiny would have it, the couple instantly fell in love with Felix and knew they wanted him to be a part of their lives. Everyone rejoiced for the little boy. Before long, the hospital reached out to social services and the adoption paperwork began. The adoption process proceeded smoothly, and in due course, the couple legally adopted Felix and welcomed him into their home. They showered him with immense love and care, and when he turned 1, they named him their sole inheritor. What a heartwarming conclusion. Although Felix may never meet his biological parents, he was blessed with a loving family who would always cherish and protect him. What are your thoughts on Felix's story? I'm really keen to know your thoughts on this story, so please don't hesitate to share your insights in the comments section below. If you enjoyed this video and found it engaging, I invite you to subscribe to our channel for more similar content. Feel free to share this video. Take good care of yourselves, and I'm excited to connect with you in our future videos.